And I am recording. So good morning, everyone, to the breakout room. I guess this is my first time presenting. This is my first time doing all this stuff. So I appreciate the grace you guys have shown me so far.
Welcome to the Thunderdome, Andy.
So I don't really have any topics to start off a discussion with, but if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them to the best of my ability. I don't think anybody from OCLC is in this conversation, so.
I am.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
you
so
absolutely,
much.
Andy. Yeah, and Andy, absolutely fantastic job presenting what is a sort of complicated path to even sort of get into the client to use it. You've got to do a lot of prep. You did really well. So if you guys have any like technical questions about how the setup works, I'm happy to answer those too.
With that presentation that you did, that was recorded too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was recorded too. And then if you guys want the PowerPoint, I can even send that, but it's not really going to be very helpful. It's just a series of images.
Right. I have to admit, I actually missed most of your presentation because one of our student workers came in. I had to get him set up.
Oh no.
This was the one that seemed the most relevant for me. But just by the way, I'm at the Louisville Seminary. I know I was in a session with you, Matt, yesterday, and I just started a couple of months ago, and with no previous, like I'm a reference librarian, sort of by it's what I've been doing up until now. So I'm doing that, but I'm just because this place is so small, I'm also doing all of circulation, interlibrary loan, archives. So I'm just trying to get up to speed on all this stuff, and just trying to make my way. So one of my main goals for this whole conference was just to get some contacts. So you know, if you all wouldn't mind, you know, I might be calling you up at some point, just trying to get a little guidance on how to navigate, you know, all the back end stuff.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I've been doing WMS stuff specifically for a little over a year now, and I've been with U of L over 10 years. So I know my way around the system just a little bit. If you feel comfortable with CSV files, the OCLC has good documentation on this process as well on their website.
Oh yeah.
So if you use their documentation and then use my PowerPoint as like a visual aid, you could probably figure it out. It's honestly not that hard.
Yeah.
But it does seem very complicated.
Right. And again, I apologize for missing most of the presentation, but in terms of what you were talking about, batch renewals, what was the main motivation for doing that?
So the main motivation for us at Ekstrom Library was because of the pandemic. We had lots of items becoming overdue, and it's kind of clumsy in the WMS interface to go and manually renew them because you'd have to pretty much do it by patron.
Right.
So what the batch renewal process allows us to do is run the all checked out items report and export that as a comma separated value file.
Okay.
Which I then manipulated in Excel. And I think Andy Noonan also said that you could probably get most of that done in the report designer in analytics tab of WMS. So that's good. I'll probably reach out to him and work with him on that and see if we can get that published to the community templates just so everyone has access to it and it's even easier to use. But I run the report and then I export the data as a CSV file. And then I go through and get rid of pretty much every single column in that report except for patron barcode, item barcode, and due date. If you filter the due date beforehand in analytics, you don't even need to have the due date column. You just need a due date column in your final Excel file because that's what OCLC is going to use to change the due date on all the items.
Yeah, and yesterday I was asking a question about batch waiving of fines, but maybe this is a better process to just renew instead of, but I guess even if you renew them, then if there were fines that accrued in between that time, they'd still be there. So I don't know, our policy is just to waive any fines that might have accrued during this, basically since March. And so I was just trying to figure out if there was a way for me to do that in a sweeping way like this, or if I was going to have to go through and do it one by one.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the fines, but I do know that the renewal process pretty much overrides any sort of settings you have for it. It just goes and renews everything, or
Right.
renews what you want it to renew en masse.
Right.
And to the original question, there is no way to batch cancel or batch waive fines in WMS.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why we tried to push out the renewal client earlier. I think it got released towards the end of March. Because we wanted to let you guys have some way to manipulate overdue items, so patrons weren't receiving overdue notices.
Right.
They weren't going into my account and seeing bills accruing or anything. So there have been a couple of libraries that have gone into their policies and actually removed links to bill structures. So if you go into service configuration, you go into your loan policies, you can also just deselect the bill structures that you might have set up for overdues. That'll also work. Your patrons will still see that the items are overdue. And if you have any sort of overdue blocks in your patron type policies, those will still apply. But if all you're primarily really worried about are the bills, one option is go in your loan policies, remove the structures, take a screenshot before you do. So when you're ready to start billing again, you remember which structures went with which. But that's another option for you. So if you're not worried about notifications, you just worry about bills, you can just remove the structures too.
Okay. And the documentation for the batch renewals and for the thing that you're talking about, where are they, or what are they called, or is there a link that you had in your presentation?
So the documentation for the batch renewals is also in the OCLC Community Center. When you actually go to download the client, the documentation is right underneath the download links.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, the documentation link is right underneath the download links. It's not on that page, but the link is there.
So this is something I would have to download to put in. Okay.
But you should just be able to run the client. So I think this is a little React app. So you don't need Java. You don't need any of the things that are sort of prerequisite for the other sort of downloadable clients. So you should be able to download and use it.
Great. And then if I have questions, do I submit a support request, or is there somebody I can just sort of like get in touch with to kind of walk me through it, or?
Your best bet would be to contact OCLC support, and they can walk you through.
Okay.
And if they have any questions, they'll punt them to me.
Great. Yeah, I've been developing a relationship with OCL support.
Great.
Started.
Great.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate this, but another question I had, our director is talking about for next term, just instead of making the loan limits, especially for students, to be, like 2 months or whatever, to be for a whole term. Is there a way to set that up so that no matter like at what point in the semester they check a book out, they're all due right at the end of the semester? There's a way to do that.
There's a way to do that.
Good.
Yeah, there's a way to do that. It's in the loan policies. So instead of setting a loan period of 30 days, 6 weeks, whatever it is, there's a way to put in fixed due dates.
Okay.
So you tell the system, here's the date. You just want to have those in place in those loan policies before you start checking out items at the beginning of the semester. Yeah.
Thanks.
This is Mary. I'm not lurking, I promise. It's just questions are being asked that I appreciate. So I'm here and listening.
I'm lurking, Andy. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Matt. You led 2 circulation discussions yesterday, and you're going to lead another one here in about an hour. So you should feel fine to lurk.
I'm resting.
And unlike you, I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice, so I like to just fill silence with silence.
You got me.
Yep.
Do you all have any advice for someone like me who's new? You know, there's nobody else. It's not like I'm apprenticing with someone who's been here for a while, can kind of show me. And so I've been kind of wading through the different links and some of the training videos. But is there like a sequence or some kind of place to go that you'd recommend just to kind of get the basics?
For me, when I first started, because since I'm the WMS admin, I have to kind of know everything about WMS, and that's kind of daunting because it's such a huge system. But my first step wherever I do anything is to just look at their documentation, and then of course, if you have any questions personally, feel free to email me or email Matt, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Great.
Yeah, my suggestion was for you to get an Andy, but since those aren't just freely available, the documentation is really helpful. Andy actually has, significant tech skills, and I can barely count to 10 most days. So all of this is a mystery to me. And so I've found the documentation is really helpful because it makes it even easy for guys like me who have, when I see HTML, like my eyes go cross-eyed. So it's been very helpful for a complete novice to use.
And when you say documentation, where is
stuff on the stuff on the community page, the stuff on they have a couple what I would call, at least for me, FAQ pages on how to use some of the different modules. And I do most of my stuff obviously in circulation or analytics or admin, the admin page. But especially the analytics was stuff that I had no idea how to use before, like reading their explainers and their help pages. And I got a lot of good information. And then, I kind of, what Andy just said is a really good helpful thing is Andy is a very helpful guy too. And I know Andy would always, respond to an email from you if you had some sort of question. I basically live in Andy's inbox. So
yeah, I'm freely available if anyone has any questions about WMS. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I'm one of those people that if I don't know something, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to let you know what I find out, or forward you to somebody who knows more than I do, so they can help you. Because that's just kind of like, since I'm part of IT, that's what I do for IT anyway. I try to figure things out, and if I can't figure it out, I want to find somebody who does, and then get you the information that you need.
Great.
It is one of those nice things about, a Kentucky-centered conference like this. We can actually, put some faces to names in the state and help each other out. And you're in the city, so it's even easier. Yeah.
Okay. I put a bunch of links in the chat because Jamie Powell, who's in charge of our WMS instance, she put all of that together for us librarians because we're the same way. We need them all. And I had a question and it went right out of my little mind.
It's Friday, man.
It's not a thing, right?
Forgive yourself.
It's a very Friday.
Yeah.
Friday.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I went and had coffee this morning, and I typically don't have coffee, so I'm super wired for a Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, the other link I would suggest, if you can keep the URL in your head, help.oclc.org lands you on like a search box where it's like, what do you want to learn right now? And it also, you can also browse through all the different topics on the different sort of areas of applications that we offer.
Great. I'll put it in the chat. So if no one has any other questions, I want to very briefly kind of jump into the weeds a little bit with you, Elizabeth. I want to know if you know anybody who could help me figure out the API for WMS acquisitions, because I'm trying to write a Python script to interface with the goodness, I'm trying to look at the budget and export that.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is, we used to have a script written in Ruby, and that's all well and good, but I don't know Ruby, I know Python, and the way that our previous developer did it, you guys don't support that anymore. You guys, you want us to get a new whiskey and secret for the apps that we need, and I requested that, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and I just haven't went back on to check, but
okay. Yes. So if you're okay with it, I'm gonna put you in contact with my colleague Karen Coombs. Her last name is Coombs. So I'll make sure she's in touch with you. She's our APIs implementation guru. And so she's done similar stuff with the ACK API and getting, I don't know how much work she's done with the budget pieces, but she's definitely savvy with the order and the invoice bits of that service. So yeah, I can get you in touch with her.
Yeah, that'd be great, because right now I can get an access token, but then when I try to authenticate and actually get data, it just kind of gives me a 403 error. So
Yeah.
I'm not able to pull that JSON data that I need. And I'm probably speaking in tongues. I apologize.
I have no idea what's happening right
No,
now.
you're good. It's for those who don't.
I remembered my question, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
they talked about the sandbox yesterday, and so all this stuff that we're talking about, can we play around within the sandbox to practice without breaking our system?
So yes and no. So there are a couple of services that aren't available in the customer sandbox environment that are available to you in your regular sort of live institution. So like the FTP server doesn't exist in the sandbox. So you can't get an inventory file. We're not running email notifications out of the customer sandbox for circulation, so you can't test those. But if you want to like muck around with your policies and see, okay, if I set it up with this fixed date and then I recall things and then I check things out, how does that work? Absolutely. So you'll have a copy of service configuration, a copy of the staff interface, copy of discovery, my account, and most of the APIs work as well. Things like SIP2 don't work, so you can't test things with like a self-check machine. But if you've got a script or a little application that you're running and you want to check it against one of our APIs, you can do that.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. And if you've got specific questions about is this available or not available, I can get answers to those. Good. I guess the only thing I would add about the bulk renewal client, it's something that we think about a lot at OCLC, which is the safety and protection of your data over the wire as we're transferring stuff back and forth to you. Is that batch renewal client does include TSL, SSL encryption. So we're not just you're not just giving us the barcodes and patron data just over the internet, but we are encrypting it. So we don't have we lower the chances of a sort of a man-in-the-middle attack grabbing all of your.
That's good to know. Also, the username and password are randomly generated every time you open the application. So every time you open it, it's going to be a new username and password. So every time you want to do a bulk renewal, you have to redo the configuration in worldkit.org/config.
And Andy, out of curiosity, do you hate that, or is that added protection okay with you?
That's perfectly fine with me. Like, I completely understand why we need that. So I'd rather go through a little bit of extra hassle than to, think for a moment that our patron data is going to get, man-in-the-middle attacked or something.
Because we talked about that a lot. We were like, this is kind of annoying, but also I really want to make sure that, also that no student worker who got fired and is mad at you decides to renew all of their friends and their own items forever.
Andy and I can think of about 6 of those students.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, we definitely know
a couple of those.
a few of those.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those in my library life too.
Well, speaking of identity, one thing I can't remember, he was talking about, I don't know, similar thing, but in the profile or in the patron record, there was a nickname field, and I don't see one in our. Is that something that we customize? Because one of the fields that we have is gender, which I feel like I don't even know why that's there. I didn't know if that was something that just came with it, or if all those things were things that we could customize.
So what's visible in the staff interface isn't really customizable. The only thing that sort of drops out or comes back in is if you've got third-party identity management. So if you've got to put in usernames and do reset passwords for something that's not an OCLC authentication method, those will pop in and out. The rest of the sort of user data, so the name, last name, gender, expiration date, was part of a standard set from the beginning of WMS time back in 2006, when we were all, I think, a little bit less educated on some of those issues. I know we've been talking about the gender selector specifically. You can't just leave it blank.
Yeah.
If choosing the binary isn't something that the
Yeah, that's like,
organization,
pretty much everyone that I've looked at that's been blank, and any new one
It's
that I
blank.
created, I didn't put anything there. I just didn't know if those things were all customizable for us. But
No.
well, where does the nickname go if there is one?
So the nickname can be patron loaded in. I think it can go in the XML or the CSV version of the file that you give to OCLC to load in. It doesn't appear in the interface, but it can be searched.
Okay.
And I can check. I don't think there are immediate plans in the next 12-month roadmap to get that visible in the interface. But there are longer term plans, again, to look at that sort of core set of name related identity information and extend that for things like place to put pronouns, and to make some of those fields potentially editable by the patrons in my account, so that your users don't have to tell the central campus system what their preferred pronouns are, but they can tell library staff what they prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how the new patient records get entered in here, other than just us doing it one at a time. I don't think that at our school that they send, that there's a process for kind of bulk saying, here's all the new students, and it goes up. I think they've just been doing it one at a time, and which is manageable here because there's really just I mean, they say there's 250 students, but I don't think there's even that many.
Yeah, then to my knowledge, there's no way to get that nickname field in there from the manual entry screen.
All right. And yeah, it's just all barcodes. And then we have all these, I've got envelopes with barcodes because I'm creating records for people that aren't on campus, and
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So you guys are managing your own sort of library cards. They don't use like a standard ID that works across the university system.
We affix the barcode to the back of their student ID, and then I'm discovering that most of the students if they got one, they don't know where it is, and so pretty.
Yeah, I remember that as well. That's also a gateway to, no, really, I'm this person that I'm having a fight with. I definitely want you to bill me for this thing that I broke, for sure. Do it. Yeah.
So I do have a question about kind of managing the patron records and the expiration date, and how we kind of keep track of people that graduated or were faculty, and then just for adjuncts, and then they're gone. So when I create a new record, I don't know. I haven't really paid that much attention to it, but I think it just has an automatic expiration date of sometime in the future. I don't know, is there a process for I don't know how you all do it at URL, like twice a semester or something like that, just kind of review and try to clean it up, or how do you kind of manage who's in there and make sure it's all up to date?
At U of L, we have a central IT office, and they give us an Excel file of all the active people at U of L every day at 6 a.m. It's an automated thing. And then we have a Ruby script that automatically parses that information and creates a new patron upload file that gets sent via FTP to OCLC. So every morning, if they're active and in that main file, their expiration date gets updated. And so when their expiration date passes, then we know almost for a certainty that they're no longer affiliated with U of L in any official way. And so they need to either get a community borrower's card or their record can just kind of just sit there. Because I know my wife went to U of L 11 years ago and her patron record was still in WMS. But she's going back to school next semester. So like, that's okay.
Right.
But yeah, we don't have a way to delete records as much as others do in WMS, which is, for us, that's okay because sometimes we have patrons who abscond with our materials and then they have, these huge fines, and it's good to keep track of that. But
so it's pretty much okay just to have these records in there. If it's expired, if they're expired, then like they really can't do anything, right?
Right. Yeah, they'd have to come physically to you, and then you can manually verify if they're still affiliated or not.
Right.
And if so, then you can just extend their expiration date.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of to watch out for is if you have any sort of agreements with electronic resources providers.
Yeah.
That resources should only be available to current,
Right.
Students. You just have to watch that. That's all I can think of, really.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's been something that we've been dealing with, Easy Proxy, and getting those things to sync up.
Yeah.
It's more been an issue of people not having access that should.
That's a problem. At Center College, we also have an IT department, and we don't even have to deal with it. They send us all active faculty, staff, and card members, and it just happens like magic. So I think, honestly, Brittany, since you're such a one-person shop,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We don't even have an IT department. It's like contracted out, and they, I don't know. They're not. They doing. They don't. I think we're the only client that is actually like an academic institution. I think they're typically working for small businesses and stuff. So yeah, it's been some challenging.
Yeah. If you're primarily thinking about just circulation, there is a patron information report that gets generated every week out of the FTP process. So you can go pick up that file if you're interested. And that'll have your full list of all the user records we have loaded for you currently in WMS if you wanted to do any cleanup. Looking at those by patron type, by like last activity date for circulation. That doesn't always mean what it would mean like in a public library, but something like that might help you get started.
I have downloaded patron lists and we have a spreadsheet, and we've been kind of breaking it down by the different categories. So I think, I'm pretty sure that's the same thing.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's been really helpful.
Good.
Yeah, we because there was, for a while, there was just really two people here. We pretty much shut down our ILL. So, hopefully we'll get that up and running in the spring term, but that's something I'm going to have to learn from the beginning too.
Yeah, it sounds like you're already wearing way too many hats.
Too many hats, yeah.
Throw an ILL in there.
Yeah, and now I'm scrambling to get all the course reserves, because here that we're expected to not only put all the, and it's up until the pandemic hit, it was they had very little interest in doing any kind of digital stuff. So on top of everything else, you know, we're getting ebooks like crazy, and you know, they don't even really have a proper LMS system here. They're just using Google Classroom, and most of the faculty were super old school to begin with. So it's a whole layer of stuff. But now I'm scrambling to get all the course reserves together, especially now that, you know, as much as possible, we're getting ebooks, and then, you know, we're still having to scan articles and upload them. So
Burton, you're describing literally, I have, for the jobs you've done, I have 10 staff and 30 students to do all of the things you said you're doing yourself. That sounds insane to me.
got one student, Parker. It's pretty great. But,
I'll send you Andy for the week.
Yeah, seriously.
Cut me a check and I'll send you Andy. Don't make it out to U of L. Just make it out to me. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it would almost be worth it.
Andy, I've been sitting here thinking about what that custom report for the bulk renewal client might look like in Report Designer. And I think you want the item status universe. I think you want to limit it down to everything that's on loan. And then just like put a bunch of input controls on it. So like if people want to select a patron type, if people want to select a home branch, if people want to select a shelving location, they can just go crazy with it.
Yeah, it sounds like something I'm going to probably be working on this afternoon, actually.
I know. I kind of want to put a draft together too.
I can see Andy's eyes. He's ready. He's like ready to go.
Like, yeah.
Ooh, this will be
I mean,
fun.
I don't have other fires to put out now. Let's work on this.
I know. Again, it's one of those things that it's on Friday afternoons. I'm more forgiving of my brains wanting to wander off to look at shiny things. Yeah.
I call that
Yeah.
Tuesday through Friday, honestly.
Friday,
Monday's about the only day I work hard.
Now, Friday's my programming day, and that's when I typically try to get all my Python programs at least documented or polished. And I'm also having to learn a different programming language called Autoit, which allows you to manipulate like window applications in Windows, and that's a whole nother fun thing I've got to learn. So I've got plenty of stuff on my own plate, and I'm always like, let's do some more stuff. Why not? I mean, I don't know when to stop trying to do too much, I guess. We still have about 12 minutes.
I guess I have a question for you, Andy. If you're how many times have you run the batch renewal since March? Just the one time, or have you been every time there's another stay-at-home order? Have you been moving dates, or how's that worked?
So I've done it a total of 2 times. So yeah, I did it yesterday just to make sure I knew what I was doing, and then I just kind of took all the images of what I was doing and put it in the PowerPoint presentation. So I should be good to go until next year, honestly, for the renewals. Now it could be that I need to do it again before I leave for the year. And I've heard someone in AOS say that I might have to do that, but I'm pretty sure I've got the rules set up in OCLC config that I don't have to, but.
Well, I know the guy who runs AUS. You can probably just ask him.
Nah. I don't want to name drop here.
He's a real jerk, that guy. Always giving you extra work.
Yeah, especially since I'm in a different department now too.
Yeah, just so
How
you two
rude.
are aware, Andy left me. Andy was my chief right-hand man and switched to OLT because he doesn't love me any further. And so now we're going through a contentious work breakup.
It's more of the fact that this is something I've always wanted to do, and I'm finally in my field, and I absolutely love my job. So.
Yes, I sound bitter, but I'm actually really happy for him.
Yeah, I wake up every day looking forward to coming to work or logging in from home and figuring out what fire I can put out today, because there's always something to do. We always have something going on.
Big library, big problems, you know. Heck,
Yeah.
no such thing as a small problem at a library, to be fair.
I'm just glad I'm kind of like cloistered down here in the lower level away from all the students, and I've got like 3 doors between me and the outside. So
Do you have any window? Do you have no windows to the outside?
No, we don't let the basement dwellers have windows. It gives them dreams. We prefer them not do that. Our tech services department and Office of Library Technologies are both in the basement.
well, we also have a server room, and we want to have physical security of that too. We don't want just anybody coming in.
That's right. You and tech services have the most locked down departments by far. Your code key access or whatever.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
No more of those pesky patrons.
Right. Well, we do have a doorbell, and actually, during the lightning talks, someone rang the OLT doorbell, so I had to turn the video off and go answer it just to make sure. So, and of course, it's BitLocker, and I know, like Matt knows how many issues we've had with BitLocker recently. It's keeping a lot of people from doing their jobs, and our central IT office sent out Windows updates a couple of weeks ago, and it pretty much made the entire library staff computers get BitLocked, and it was so frustrating. So me and one of my colleagues had to go and touch every single staff PC in the building and in the art and music libraries to make sure that they had the latest updates to hopefully mitigate the issue in the future. But I'm still getting people saying they're BitLocked. I've had 3 complaints since I did all that. So, you know, just fun times.
That's what, 60, 80 computers you probably had to touch?
Yeah, they're about, close to 80 in about 7 different departments. So
Job
it's
security.
That's
That's
exactly
right.
what that is.
it's job security, but it's also frustrating because I think I've got the answer, and then nope, I don't have the answer. I thought I did. No. So that's like the frustrating part. You think you know, but you don't.
Yeah, I'll say there are a lot of bored people out there doing heinous things to try to hack into things all over the place. You guys seen or been impacted by any of that?
Not that we've seen. Has OCLC, I take it?
I mean, every once in a while we get, the email from the global security guys that says, remember not to open attachments on email. So we kind of assume that somebody did something silly, but we catch it. We've got really great security guys. Mm-hmm.
That one happens a lot, though I will say a lot of those notices seem to come from some of the teaching faculty who don't realize that that African prince doesn't actually want to loan them any money. Yeah,
We have.
yeah.
It still happens.
My brother used to sell pianos, and one of his colleagues got one of those emails that someone in I think it was Ethiopia had just come into a lot of money, and could they send 500 pianos because he was going to have every child in his city have their own piano, and she made the order, and he said, "Oh, stop! Turn the boat around, Yamaha." But yeah.
That's how I met my pen pal in Rhodesia, so it's okay. Is that a country? No, it's not a country anymore.
Like I know our central IT office has something called the fishbowl, where you can see all the phishing emails that have been sent to U of L, and then we have methodologies to kind of report phishing emails before they can hurt anybody. But then I'm also just a naturally paranoid person, which is probably a good thing for a person in IT, because you have to be on your toes all the time to make sure you're not accidentally like leaking personal information out over the internet.
We had that bad one like what, 6-8 months ago, where we had a phishing attack that was based on all of our dean, the library's dean's email signature, and so everybody thought they had gotten an email from the dean, and apparently some people opened it before they realized that, wait a minute, the dean is not deanfox@gmail.com.
Yeah. are classes done for the year? For all of you? No. When do you stop, Matt?
Well, what you don't see behind me is a stack of things I'm supposed to be grading right now for the students. But I think I'll probably be done with my grading in the next 3 or 4 days, and I'll have grades submitted. So U of L told the students not to come back after break, but classes still continue until classes/finals still continue until the 8th or the 9th. So that's when I'll be done.
What class are you teaching?
I teach, depending on the semester, I teach American 1, American 2, or American Military 1 or American Military 2. So I'm teaching American Military 1 right now and American History 2 right now. And
Wow.
the converse of those next semester. Yeah, I rarely know what planet I'm on between those things and the library responsibilities I have. When does the seminary semester end?
I believe it goes until the 16th.
Hmm.
I mean, with the finals and everything.
Right.
Then we have what they call J term, which is just January term. And then right after that, spring term starts.
How long is your all's J term? 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically that 1 month. So, right, probably like 3 weeks.
Yeah, we call that one the how much money can we grab over the winter break tuition binge semester. We have the same one.
Yeah, ours is the last 3 weeks of December.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. That's
Well,
rough.
tuition for all the students is free. It's like if you can get in here, you don't have to pay tuition. Of course, it's mainly residential, so they do have to pay for their housing, which is
Which is where the universities make their money anyway.
right.
Very true.
With housing, yeah.
Are the seminary students required to live on campus's housing, or can they rent
No.
off campus?
Yeah, I think they can live off campus, and this year, I think is the first time they've had people living, far from Louisville, and one person's not even in the country.
Wow.
But up until this previous term, all classes were in person, so they needed.
Yeah, it's been weird this semester for sure. I think I had about 55 students this semester all told, maybe 60, and I'd say probably a third of them ended up opting for fully online versions of my classes. And I'm really old school. I much prefer to lecture in person with a PowerPoint. Like I stopped progressing technologically at in 2015 or 2005. So it's not helpful to me to switch all online.
So you're doing hybrid?
Yeah. Actually, up until Thanksgiving break, I was in a classroom Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, which, despite it being a pandemic, was oddly safe. I really wasn't worried about in-person teaching. I pivoted. We were required to pivot about 25% of our class to online for a hybrid class. So we just did 25% discussion boards online as our online component, and I just lectured like I always had. But I know a lot of professors who really have had a hard time pivoting at all. A couple of them I know who taught me when I was an undergrad, 15 years ago, really were not equipped to switch to, fully to Blackboard or fully to, an online version. And we have, they just announced the number of students who didn't enroll for the next semester, and we're down 700 enrollees overall, which is just a titanic number. And I think it has a lot to do with it's just not, students don't feel like it's worth it to take classes, when they're not getting the experience of a full class. And I don't blame them, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Have there been talks of furloughs or anything like that?
They talked about it briefly when the pandemic first hit, and there were voluntary furloughs within the library. Most of the campus units, and I'm just an adjunct for the history department. I don't teach full time for them. So they didn't really need to furlough any of the part-timers, but I know there were plenty of people across campus who either volunteered for furloughs or took them, as part of the individual unit cuts. But 700 students down is a huge number for the spring. And while I expect, it's also December 4th and I have enough students emailing me like right now saying, hey, can I do my homework from last month? Like I know a bunch more students will register in the coming 3 weeks, but probably not enough to fill that gap. So I'm sure we'll be talking furloughs again in a few months. It seems inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that all those students that are delaying will then just, when hopefully by next year when vaccine is available.
Exactly. I'm sure. And, I'm sure they'll trickle in over the next 3 weeks. They always do. And this is one of the things I always laugh when they announce like, oh, there's 700 students who are missing for next semester. Well, there's always 700 students who are missing come January or come December 4th because none of them have finished their finals. They're not thinking about next semester's class until they do that. And given the number of emails that just keep ticking in as we sit here like, hey, professor, can I have an extension? Hey, professor, can I have an extension? I have a feeling they just haven't looked at class schedules for next semester yet.
Well, I really appreciate y'all's offering to help me out, and don't be surprised.
No, please.
Please reach out.
Yeah, if you need us, I'm sure Elizabeth will throw her stuff in, but if you need us, both of our contact info is on the U of L website. Feel free to shoot us a note. I'm super helpful. Andy is less than super helpful, but
Thanks so much.
Well, and I think, Burton, at some point we're going to be learning from you, right? As Matt mentioned with furloughs, we're all going to start wearing more hats.
Yeah.